Welcome back to the farm for another project. It's your first time. I hope you enjoy. So what we're going to be working on today is we are going to be making some succulent planter boxes for my wife. She'd like to have a couple of planter boxes that she can put in the windowsill and put all of her little succulents in it. So instead of one big long planter box, we're going to build two small ones. Now, anybody knows that if you're dealing with wood, especially maple, which likes to move, you really can't allow a lot of water and moisture from that soil to get on these. So we're going to build succulent lined planter boxes lined with really thin sheets of plexiglass. So I've already got these milled to size, so let's go ahead and start getting some engravings going and let's get some boxes built. Okay, so I kind of went through the stack and I picked out the two that have the character that I like the most to kind of face outwards. They have some really pretty reds and whites and a little bit of spalting, which will look really nice when we get the oil on them. So now that we've got these two picked, we're going to go ahead and we're going to go fire up the CNC machine and we're going to put a couple of engravings here on the front. So let's go get that started. So in both of these front panels, we're going to be carving a Celtic tree, and I've already got the 1/16 clearing bit in there, and then we'll come back with a 60-degree V-bit for all the real fine detail that we're going to put inside the tree. And I'll have a link in the description for both the bits I'm going to use. So let's get the machine running. Well, now that we have both of the engravings done, I've kind of gone through and done all the sanding and got them ready to go. So now we're going to step over here and we're going to cut our 45s. So I actually just threw this jig together here real quick. I just took a small piece of the track that I had, put one of those pieces of wood right in here so it holds it nice and tight, and then I'm going to put a little clamp on it to make sure I don't get any deflection from the lumber as I'm trying to cut the 45. So I've got these little extra sliders here so I can make these jigs. I made about a dozen of them and I just keep them for making quick jigs. So this is what I'm going to use for cutting my 45s. So it'll be quick and easy. I've got a nice handle. I can slide them in. They'll be snug up against this, and then this will lock them in place so the lumber's not going to move anywhere. And I'll know that I'm getting a 45 because now if you look here, I can line up where I need the very edge of my wood to sit right where I know the blade is going to cut. So now we'll get the first couple of these cut, and then we'll start assembling the boxes. Okay, so we're going to line the first one up here. We'll double check it here, make sure we get a perfect 45. So now we'll double check it here. Perfect 45s every time. Okay, so we got the first box is all glued and ready to go. So the other one's still sitting drying. So we're going to use this one as kind of our test piece so that we can cut them all since they're identical. So here's our base. So we want our base to fit inside here snug but not so tight that we can't get glue on it. So that drops in there. Alright, so that drops in there just a little too snug. I'll probably go ahead and sand the edges of that just a little bit so it's just a little bit looser dropping in there. We want to have that gap for the glue. We don't want it to all come smearing out. What we're also going to do, now that we have one of these bases to base this off of, now we're going to take this base and we're going to go through here with our plexiglass. We're going to use this kind of as our template so we can cut these down so that these are all be at the same size. We'll just get a razor blade here and we'll just kind of score this a couple of times and it should break fairly easily. So then that we can actually make all the bases, the sides, and the walls for all of them based off of this one since we know they're both the exact same size. So now it's been a day or so. The boxes are all nice and dry. The glue should be good on those. We're going to put some finished nails down around the whole base and on the sides just to make sure everything's nice and tight. But I also want to add a little bit more character as well as give some more strength to these joints here. So we're going to do some spline joints. So I took some old pen blanks, and I believe this is old walnut. So we're going to go ahead and run these through the planer. I just used a little double-sided sticky tape. So hopefully I can shear all these down to the same size. and then we'll get the spline joint jig out and get these added. I don't know if this is going to work because I've never done it before with this double-sided tape on this running through the planer, so we're just have to keep our fingers crossed it's not going to eject these out here. So we got our ear protection, eye protection on, and we're just going to kind of stand clear of the machines that goes through here. Now, a couple of these are a little bit taller, have a little bit more imperfections, so we're going to run those ones in first and see what happens. Well, that actually worked perfect. Those came out almost just looking like glass. That's awesome. So I'll do just a little tiny bit of sanding just to touch them up. And let's go load up the spline joint and we'll go ahead and get these added. Okay, so I just took the Japanese pull saw and went ahead and cut all the excess, all of our spline joints off here. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna put some 150 grit on the orbital sander, and we're gonna sand all those down, and then we'll come back with some 220 and coat the whole thing out on the outside, just to give us a real nice finish, kind of go around all those corners and clean everything up. And then we're gonna come back and we're gonna start going and inserting that plexiglass on the inside. Okay, so now that we have the whole thing all the way around sanded down to 220, one thing that I just had happen, which has never really happened before, is right here on the spline, a little tiny corner piece actually cracked and came out. So I'm gonna have to do a little repair work, but I wanna do that very last. I'm gonna get all the plastic inserts and everything else done first. So what I did is I grabbed a little piece of one of the corners that I had for that joint, and I'm gonna try to cut it down as close as I can to size, and then I'm hopefully gonna be able to get that down in there with a little bit of glue, but I'm gonna let that be the very last thing that I do, so that way everything else is finished, and I'll just come back to a little hand sanding. So. Ducks and the geese, man, over the door. I don't know if you can see them, but man, they're so obnoxious. Look at these guys. Sitting over here making a ruckus, waiting for snacks. Makes it hard to get a video done with the ducks and the birds out there. Alright, well, I'm gonna go get rid of them. We'll give them some food, get rid of them. And then we're gonna go ahead and get the plastic inserted on the inside of this thing. So, I'll be right back. Okay, so we're just going to do a little test fit. Now, some of these are going to overlap, which is how I did design it, because I wanted to be able to put some glue in between there, just make sure we got a good seal. So we're just going to do a real quick test fit. Now, we want it snug, but not so snug that it's actually going to bend up. We still want it to be able to sit flat. The bottom ones are kind of the keys to making sure that they're the snuggest fit, because that's the biggest place I'm worried about the seal. So now if I try to push this all the way down, looks like we got one little high spot. Got a little tiny trimming to do just on this little edge here, and that one will sit in there nice and flush. I'm just gonna straighten this up just a little bit here. That one fits pretty well. Let's test fit our sides here, so if there's any trimming that'll be needed on these. It looks like I got a little piece to break off there. Alright, so those sides look good. Height-wise, those are in good shape. And we're going to test fit the little ends here. And again, we want them to slide in snug. Oh, that's perfect. Nice and snug. Okay, so the only one I got to do is just a little tiny trim up right here, and I can actually see where I kind of messed my line up, so it's not perfectly square. So I'll trim this one up, and then we'll pull this protective coating off. We're going to run some super glue down in here. And then we're going to go ahead and run this one. We're going to put some clamps all around the outsides of it. And hopefully the weight of it, maybe I'll drop a couple pieces of wood down in the center just to make sure all the glue dries inside. Okay, so now we got all the clamps on here. We're going to give that super glue, I don't know, 10 or 15 minutes. We'll come back just so it has a chance to kind of dry there. But now hopefully that's going to kind of create a nice, you got to see it nice and reflective. Now the other reason I wanted to use this clear plexiglass, because that way if any of the soil can come right to the very top of that, you actually won't even see this little plexiglass because it can be down below the soil. So you can run the soil up within about 1/8 of an inch from the top. So that should work out pretty well, we're hoping. So next thing we'll do is I'm going to go get some clear sealant. So then when this is done, we're going to run a real thin bead all the way around the base and all the way up the corner joints. Okay, we're getting ready to silicone all the joints on the inside. But right now what I wanted to show you is I got that repair done So right here on that spline joint where it was gone, you can actually see there's just a very faint line right there where you can see where I did the repair. On this side, you actually can't even make it out at all. It actually came out perfect on this side. So I'm hoping once I get the mineral oil on here, it'll actually kind of bring out the textures of the wood and you actually won't even see it. So what we're going to be using for the silicone is we're going to be using this clear Gorilla Glue, because I know it's 100% waterproof. I've actually used this on my camper van and a couple other things, and I really like this stuff. So we're going to hit every joint, bottom and up the sides, and everywhere that we're overlapped. Even though they're super glued, just for a little extra care, and we'll come back through with my finger, just make sure it's really pushed down in those gaps. So let's go ahead and get that done, and then we'll add the feet, and then we'll get some mineral oil added to this to really kind of let it shine. So my wife just got me this painting mat, and I'm gonna give it a try here. What's really like about this is that supposedly if you drop anything on it, you can just take it out and hose it off and nothing will stick to it. So we're gonna give it a try. Now we're just using mineral oil, so that's not a real big deal. We're gonna go ahead and get our finish done on this and see how the colors of this wood are really gonna come to life here. Just got done transplanting all the succulents here. Everybody fit in there nice and perfect. So we're going to move these inside. Now I did fill up the soil right to the very top edge of that acrylic, the plexiglass in there. So as the soil kind of compacts, as we watered a couple of times, hope that'll kind of pack it down and everything will sit in there real nice. Now if you look underneath here, you can see the little tiny gap underneath. And I do have some little plastic trays that I made to go underneath there. So as any water that does drip isn't going to end up sitting in the windowsill and ruin the windowsill. So hopefully it all works out. Hopefully my wife really enjoys these, and hopefully these ones stay together a little bit longer. Well, thanks for joining me for another video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, feel free to give it a thumbs up. Feel free to share. If you have any questions or comments, please put those down below. I'll do what I can to answer them for you. If you really enjoyed this project, you want to join me from all other projects, all my other adventures, consider hitting that subscribe button. Again, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you around.